Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan guru-muthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week is somebody I've been trying to get on for years, and I sent him a message about 3 years ago, I think, and I'm delighted to say we finally got him. Rob Delaney is famous to most people, I suppose, as a comedy actor. He's a comedian, a writer, a political activist, and he's written a very emotional book called A Heart That Works about losing his son to a brain tumor. And it's a very emotional work, and Rob has been out promoting it on TV and radio, and you've been making people cry. I mean, it must be very, very strange doing a sort of a book promotional tour for something like this that's so emotional. I mean, how are you, first of all?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm doing okay. I knew it would be hard to promote this book, but I knew that in the writing of it, it felt like a healthy process. You know, it helped me organize some thoughts and realize some things that were very helpful to me. So the writing of it was a good thing, even though it wasn't easy. I knew that I wanted it to be out there for people because I know that from my own experience that a bereaved parent just kind of showing you how they did things can be very helpful to other bereaved parents. So I'm no better, no worse than any other bereaved parent. So if I have something to offer, it'll likely be of use to other people who've been through enormous pain. So there's a good thing there and a good thing there. In the middle is putting it out there. That's difficult because, yes, I'm proud of the book. Yes, I want people to read it. But it's difficult to, in formal settings, talk about Henry, my beautiful son, who died. Yeah, there's a book, trailing after him, among many other things, feelings and questions and anger and sadness and all that. But 40 years from now, if I'm around, it's highly likely I won't remember I wrote the book, but I'll remember Henry,
Yeah.
And so it's interesting talking about a thing that's Henry adjacent, but isn't Henry. It's just a book.
Does grief change with time when it's a baby?
Yeah. He was 2 years, 9 months when he died. And there is, of course, acute grief, which is very physical, very exhausting. I talk in the book about how when I would go to sleep for months after Henry died, I didn't believe that I would wake up. I felt as my, body processes began to slow down, I'd think, well, what will reanimate them? What is going to pull me out of sleep? So every time I went to sleep, I would think, well, this could be it. Certainly feels like it. Now, when I go to sleep, I generally believe I'll wake up. And one thing, this sort of mantra kind of came to me early after Henry died, where I was sitting on a floor crying and had been crying for a while. And then I thought to myself, it's okay. You'll be sad forever. And I found that very comforting because I immediately was like, oh, right, I don't have to finish this grief. I don't have to do it perfectly. I don't have to do it well. It's going to be here. And so that sort of made me fear it less. So I know that sounds depressing.
That's really interesting because you kind of think it's not something I need to get over.
Yeah, of course I'm sad. Yeah, I'm going to be sad forever. Among other things. So the among other things comes later. But it'll probably come for most people, But at first, yeah, you're just sad and bodily sad, vomiting sad.
Because you say when you went to sleep, you wondered if you'd wake up, but obviously you had to wake up because you had your other kids.
True. Henry's death didn't make me love them any less, you know what I mean? Nor did my boundless love for them make the grief for Henry any less. They coexist, but it feels so wrong when your child dies that even though, yes, you do, or I did, thank goodness, have other boys to live for, and a wife that I'm very grateful for, my body felt something so bad and so wrong has happened that I really can't give you any guarantee that I can continue. So that's how hard it is that even though there's other people you love, as much as the person who has departed, you can understand that on paper, but your lizard brain, the part of your brain where Henry's tumor was, right next to your brainstem, the oldest part of our brain says, my child died. Why would I bother to wake up, And then over time, for me, that has passed, and the grief for Henry has been weaved into my life and as a part of every day, as it should be.
I mean, you talk in great detail about Henry, but also about living with the fact that you knew he was going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does the grieving begin then? Are you grieving with somebody
Something
who's
like
alive?
that.
Or
It's something like grief. There's technology, of course, is mostly awful, benign, leaning towards awful with the way we use it, or it's used against us. But my phone does do one fun thing where every morning there's a little for you section of photos where it shows you just a selection of old photos. And I love that. And they're very frequently of Henry. There's a 1/4 chance or 1/5 chance that there'll be photos of Henry in there. So yesterday one came up, which is Henry, a month after we've learned his tumor has come back, and he's naked. He's crawling up a flight of stairs, and my wife and I are behind him. You can see his feeding tube kind of trailing behind him. Those you can tie off neatly so they're safe to just have out there in the world. And then you can see what's called the tracheostomy tapes that go around the back of his neck and that holds his tracheostomy tube in. And he's crawling up the stairs, and he's kind of dancing as he does it. And he's wiggling his bum, and my wife and I are laughing. And then my wife says, Henry, slap that bum. And then he's wiggling and he slaps his own bum. It's amazing. So we knew he was going to die, but he was continuing to develop skills and redevelop skills that he lost because of the tumor and the surgery. So seeing that, being funny and cheeky and aspirational, literally climbing stairs, naked, king of his domain, just so vibrant and fun and wonderful. And we knew that he would die in the not distant future. He died 3 months later. So we thought we were insane, because again, they can tell you every day it's back. There's nothing can be done. He's going to die and be dead. And we're like, that's impossible. Look at him. So that time was, I don't know how we did that,
There's a moment where you talk about deciding that you weren't going to put him through more treatment.
Right, yeah.
And how the medical staff cried tears of sort of gratitude that you'd taken that.
Yeah, a couple of people, one nurse and one doctor cried because there was stuff that we could have done. Everybody agreed there's no solution, but they were like, maybe we could buy him some time if we did some really terrible stuff to him. And we were like, but he's definitely gonna die? And they were like, oh yeah. And my wife came to it a few hours before I did, just because she's smarter and better at sort of collating all the information. Because as wonderful as every doctor was, they have their specialties that they kind of stay in, so the parent or the patient kind of assembles all the information and then makes the decision. So we were like, yeah, my wife was like, we can't, because if we do this, then even what we do might kill him. It'll absolutely hurt him. And then he'll die anyway, And so I was like, well, couldn't we? And then a few hours later, I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then telling his brothers, his big brothers, 3 and 5, is our brother gonna die? Yeah. Yes, he is.
I mean, when you look back, do you, are there any things that you think, I wish I'd done that differently? Or is it all just learning and life and...
Not before he died, no. I think the easiest thing to screw up would have been our relationships with each other, the people who weren't Henry. We could have neglected our other boys. We could have said, you know what, we'll be back in a few months or whatever. We'll dress you, feed you, but beyond that. And certainly to each other, my wife and I could have said, like, clearly we have this task in front of us that is immense. We don't need to focus on we don't need to divert any attention to each other. But of course, like anything, if you give your partner, a little bit of attention, they flourish, and it's the ultimate, you get in what you put out, and that is true or truer when you're under extreme duress. I don't know how we knew to do that, but we did. So yeah, no regrets.
I mean, you said you carried on sort of going on date nights.
Yeah.
How do you go on date nights when your child has cancer and you know they're going to die, and not talk about that all the time?
Oh, we didn't not talk about it, because sometimes, your partner might come home and be talking about work, and then, we've all heard or done the thing where you're like, why don't we not talk about work,
Yeah.
But we wouldn't do that about Henry. But at the same time, we would try to, we would read the same books, or we would read aloud to each other, before we would go to bed. So we'd fall asleep reading the same book to each other. After we'd gone through all our medical stuff and done the best we could with whatever and our plans for the next day, then we would read something to each other, We read The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber. And I know that he's retired because his last book he wrote, and he said he got a tremendous amount of help from his wife with all his writing. And but then he didn't want to write any more novels after she died. And I just, I need to reach out to him somehow and say how much his writing, and often about his wife, directly or obliquely, helped my wife and I during a very difficult time. So, Michelle, if you're watching, thank you. If I can lure you out of retirement, let me know what it would take. But yeah, that was really nice, reading to each other.
Because of course you're working all the way through this and hitting success that you
Yeah.
haven't really experienced in the same way before.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Because I would be in a pediatric cancer ward, and I'd be with nurses who live outside of London and have to drive very far or tube very far to get to work because they understandably can't afford a flat near where they work. And then from there, I'd get picked up in a black sedan and taken to an awards show where there's literal billionaires. So for me, it was a very educational time, because I saw people who were below the poverty line, who were working harder than I do, and doing incredibly important, beautiful stuff. And then I'd be with people, with inherited wealth, who were pretending to do whatever. And so it was maddening. And it really made me realize these, or for example, cancer affected our family, but it affects lots of families. It doesn't discriminate as to whether you're rich or poor. And so maybe in the bed next to us, there's somebody who is poor and has that additional unbelievable stress. And so they're trying to figure out how to navigate the work that they must show up for and take care of their kid who's suffering or maybe dying. And they don't deserve that, just like the billionaire doesn't deserve, the stable full of horses, I mean, first of all, we need a one-horse maximum rule, I think, in this country. So I learned a lot about money and how it's used and not used. And, you realize, there are people in the country who wake up every morning and around 8:30 decide, that's a pretty good misery level for those folks. You know, what do we need to do about it? Nothing. Again, sounds good, and sign off on it. So that really made me angry.
Do you think some of your rage went into politics? Because when I first wanted to interview you, you had, I think, spoken about Henry a little bit. What you've become very well known for is being politically, very straightforwardly out there about what you believe.
Yeah.
Joining protests, saying what you think on social media. Is that where you directed some of the rage, do you think, of Henry? Or
I don't know. Henry certainly heightened it, and focused my mind, because then the discrepancy between the things I was seeing sometimes in one 3-hour period was making me crazy. So that sort of put a finer point on it. But like, even moving to the UK, and having had medical debt in the United States, despite being able-bodied and healthy, there was a time when I had tens of thousands of dollars worth of medical debt.
what does that mean? Sorry, what is medical debt?
Oh, it's money that you are that you're in arrears. And
To a hospital.
Yeah, that collection agents are pursuing, because you signed a thing saying, yes, I'll find one way or another to get you your money, whether or not my insurance, or if I don't have insurance, covers it, guaranteeing that you'll pay them. So then coming over here and discovering the NHS, and I was bananas about the NHS before Henry even got sick. I mean, I remember signing up at the local GP and, like fumbling for a credit card, and they're like, what? We don't need that. And I was like, what? And, or like even paying the immigrant health surcharge as part of our visas. I don't agree with that. However, it was so much less than a normal American annual premium that I was like, hell yeah. In certain devolved countries, you don't have to pay for prescriptions, but here, you pay $9 in England, and I'm like, $9, you got it, because it can be so expensive in the US. And so discovering the NHS was amazing. And then once Henry got sick, forget about it. I mean, the amount of time we would have spent on the phone begging for an MRI to get approved, or wondering why we'd gone to the pharmacy to get a certain medicine and they wouldn't give it to us. So we gained a lot of time merely by being in a country that had a national health service. My political involvement is just sort of like calling it like I see it. I'm not trying to do anything other than tell you what I've seen. I've said sometimes I present myself as a ghost of Christmas future for British people regarding healthcare, because I can show you what it could be like, and just want to let people know that the NHS is something to be defended with hammers and rakes and bricks if necessary.
But within that, obviously, you must know this from your own experience, as a proportion of national wealth, we spend half of what America does.
I know.
It's a fraction, less than a lot of our European neighbors. And then we wonder why the NHS is struggling.
I know, exactly. Yeah, it's a funny thing and it's weird where it manifests, because the little things, flu jab, pretty easy to get, and any sort of your most basic interactions with the NHS, mine have been pretty good. Then, of course, with a brain tumor or anything genuinely catastrophic, most people I spoke to received tremendous care on a good timeline. But it's the stuff in the middle, like, hey, my knee, I'm 45 and my knee seems to be giving, then you could be waiting for a while. So diagnostic stuff, like sometimes the discovery of certain illnesses and stuff, can take time in the UK. So I have a little bit, I can maybe see a little deeper into what it is and what it could be because of previous experience. So yeah, I think I might be of use in diagnosing or helping the NHS, improve some things, but it's rather not the NHS, but the government's treatment of the NHS, or their valuing, how they value it or don't, as the case may be.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this who are trying to picture your family scene and inevitably think that Henry is Sharon Horgan's son.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously, Leah is not Sharon Horgan, so your wife. So
yeah.
Talk about why you're here in the first place. Why are you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so I was over here doing stand-up, and my manager said, "Hey, I got you a deal to write a pilot for the BBC." And I thought, little old me, I didn't even think to dare to ask that. So I said to my friend Sharon, "You want to write a pilot?" She said, "Sure." So we hammered out a pilot, had fun doing it, and we're pretty sure that's where it would stop. We gave it to the BBC, and they read it, and they said, "This is great. We don't want to make it." So we brought it to Channel 4, and Channel 4 said, "Yeah, sure, we'll shoot it." And we thought, well, isn't that fun? We get to shoot a little pilot, and that'll be that. I'll have learned a lot, and it'll be fun. I'll have gotten to work with Sharon Horgan. What a treat for me. And it'll stop there. But it didn't. It kept going. My wife took a leave of absence from teaching English at Culver City Middle School in Los Angeles, and we thought we would be here for 6 months. And now it has been over 8 years. I must, point out, we were going to leave after the second series of Catastrophe. We thought, you know what, we've had a good run, but it's nice. We lived in Santa Monica. We lived by the beach. From our house, you could walk into the ocean in 10 minutes and be in the surf and be looking at the Santa Monica mountains. It was nice, and we thought we would go back to that. So we were in the process of starting to make that happen, and then Henry got sick, and so then we couldn't go anywhere. He was alive for 21 months after his diagnosis. And then when he died, we were prostrate with grief. We couldn't do anything. And our older boys had been really well taken care of by their wonderful state school and their friends. And so we couldn't make Henry not die. That was a trauma we couldn't protect our older boys from, but we could not move them to a country that they really didn't even remember. And so they wanted very much to stay and, become footballers. And so we're just here. Yeah. Now we just got indefinite leave to remain. Took the life in the UK test. I have a provisional driver's license. So, I'm almost as British as you at this point. Give me about a year.
And I suppose, well, is there some element of not being able to leave because of Henry?
I want to see people he saw. I want to walk through parks and see slides that he slid down. I want to see the moon in the same position in the sky during the same months that he saw, So London is a very special place to me. We are not far where we're filming right now. We're a very short walk to Great Ormond Street Hospital, which I was like, when we were on the way here, I was like, this can't be the most efficient route here. Why are they going by? And the driver had no idea. And I was just like, and that's wonderful. Like I, by accident, got to go by Great Ormond Street Hospital today. I'll take that throughout the whole day, and that makes me happy,
I was going to say, because you write a lot about being happy about certain things, about memories, about about the way you feel about things.
Yeah.
And being happy is about the last thing most people would think you would end up as.
Yeah, so in the beginning...
So how do you get happy?
How do you get happy? Well, I guess maybe you develop the ability to feel happy and sad at the exact same time. So when I smile about Henry, there's like a physical component of I feel prickling behind my eyes, meaning tear ducts are at the ready, and so it's always, or usually I should say, bittersweet happiness. But I've talked to a lot of people. Of course, I now roll with bereaved parents all the time, on purpose, because I like to be around them. And we laugh and smile. I would hazard as much as anybody. We probably cry more, but we definitely laugh as much. Because that's what happens, I think about Henry. I smile. It's tinged with sadness. How could it not be? And that's okay.
Why do you like being around other bereaved parents?
They get it. They see the whole me, and I see the whole them, and we're not uncomfortable around each other, and we can communicate even without words.
And do you understand why some people run away from bereavement? Can't face it.
Sure.
Do the opposite
Yeah,
to what you've done.
Yeah, and that's their issue. They can work on that on their own time. Also, as a bereaved parent, my patience for certain things has evaporated, so I wouldn't like have a message for the people who feel that way.
Right.
Work it out. I don't know.
What else have you lost patience with?
It's probably lucky that I'm an actor, because some of my best acting is when somebody is explaining a problem to me that is not so big and like really wrapped up in it. I'll be like, ooh, there. I mean, just garbage. Terrible faking it. But I fake it. I'm not a piece of garbage. I can't be like, listen up, man, Oh, really? You're dealing with that thing? Yeah. Is your kid in a coffin? Like, I can't do that, but I totally do that with my bereaved parents. Yes, my bereaved parents, I can get together and be like, get a load of what this guy just said. And then we'll just obliterate that person and then maybe share some quiche.
And is that the same for everything? So when you watch the news
Yeah.
and you see me saying catastrophic, terrible, disaster.
Oh, no, I care about that.
Do you kind of think that's not a disaster?
No, I mean, if it's coming across your desk, it's probably pretty serious. And also there's times where I'm extra sensitive to things happening in the world because I feel like, geez, I feel terrible for these people. Like, I get it. I'm like, well, my life is messed up irreparably, and I have to bear that, but other people too. So my empathy still exists, but there's a threshold it has to hit.
To come back to Catastrophe then, while Henry was alive and while you were going all through this, I mean, because it's not a normal job what you do.
No.
So you're having to be funny and to write funny.
Yeah.
How do you write? How do you even think funny when you're going through something like that?
Yeah. So at first, I didn't know that I could. I just needed to work because I wanted to show my kids that your dad still goes to work even after your brother dies. I wanted to sort of act some normalcy. So I was like, I'll go to work so they see me go to work. I'll go to work so I earn money so I can pay our rent. That's why I'll go to work. And then I get to work and I'm like, my job is to write something funny. So then I'd be like, clickety-click, But yeah, so Sharon and I would come up with ideas and I'd be like, I don't know if this is funny at first. And then, I don't know, maybe towards the end of, maybe even the first day, I was like, starting to laugh. And what I found was grief and work can be compatible. And yeah, Sharon and our assistant, whose name was Chrissy, we were the three people in the room, and they're lovely. So if I needed to go cry, I went and cry, or I would just sit there and cry and make them watch, and then resume. So I'm trying to do that right now. My dad, who's in this book and is wonderful and is taking very good care, who took very good care of Henry. See how I just went into present tense, who took wonderful care of Henry, has leukemia, and he's not well. And as I'm promoting this book, I'm thinking about him, and I'm trying really hard, having learned what I learned with Henry, to not put my feelings about my dad, like trying not to stuff him down, not put him on a shelf or anything like that. So like lately I've been finding myself just like sitting down, doing something that I did with Henry, which is talk to myself about my dad, call him on the phone, I go see him all the time.
You are good at that, are you? Because a lot of people are very good at talking about their parents or
and then calling
person, but they're not very good at doing it in person.
I know my time with him is pretty limited, so I have been a good boy lately about contacting him.
But I mean, in terms of conveying how you feel.
Oh, yeah.
I'm terrible at telling my parents how I feel about them, but I'm very good at talking about them in glowing terms.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Or even making a speech about them.
So
but when it comes one-to-one, I'm rubbish,
So we're lucky because we wouldn't have communicated as well a few years ago. But then, I was put through the crucible with Henry, and so were they. to a degree. And they were very involved in his care, and they were wonderful. So we have been through something very serious. But because of that, I'll tell my dad I love him, and grateful to be able to do it. And it comes out of my mouth nice and easy. Good guy, easy to love.
In terms of the people that the book is for, I mean, I suppose it's obviously a good book for people who've gone through bereavement, and it's going to be an interesting and heart-rending book for people who are nowhere near that kind of place in their lives. I mean, I can't help feeling it about the people who are where you were when Henry was alive, and kind of thinking, would I want to pick up that book now? Probably not.
Right.
But what would you say? Do you have advice, if you like, for want of a better word, for people in that situation about how to function, how to cope?
I would just say, you know what to do. Your body knows what to do, which is touch your kid, be with your kid. You're not the doctor. You don't have to be, but what you were born knowing how to do, or worst case scenario, you learned to do when they were born, and is just hold the kid and kiss him, because you do have several PhDs in that. You're better at that than the doctor treating them is at their chosen thing. So just do that. Touch them. Be with them. When your child dies, it will hurt. You don't have an understanding of pain to prepare you. So there's no studying for it. So you really don't have to worry about it, because it's going to come and it's going to do what it's going to do. And you will be buffeted and loved and held by that child even after they're gone, if you just glued yourself to them and loved them.
You begin in the ponds swimming.
Yeah.
And it's it's a little section about fears, I suppose, and worries, and how they change with perspective.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of anything now?
Not really. No, I'm not afraid of anything in the physical world. I mean, I can still, be my own worst enemy and do stupid things, or, stuff like that. But no, am I afraid of a shark? No.
Were you?
Yes.
So yes.
I was, yes. I was afraid of sharks.
And of swimming.
And of swimming, yeah. It was just a mental thing. I was afraid to swim in lakes and ponds because I know it's not true, but I really thought that there would be like a corpse of a mailman down there that had become reanimated, and he would, fish in reverse and catch me and pull me down and make me be his wife. Or vine, even a vine. What if a vine went in a hole that I didn't want, and because they're alive too, I thought. So I was very afraid. But my wife is a major lake and pond swimmer. She was like, come on, it's fun. And I was like, yeah, fun. And but then after Henry died, I was like, oh, I don't care. I'll go be the mailman's wife. A vine can kill me, that I don't care. So I started swimming, being like, yeah, of course I'm in grave danger. I'm in a pond, but I didn't care if I died. So it's really weird. But then after a while, I'd be like, oh, this thing people have been saying throughout history, it's fun to swim in a pond. Look at that, they're correct. So now I go in and I'm happy and I'm not afraid. But there was a period where I was still concerned that I would die, or rather I should say, I knew the possibility existed that I would die, but I didn't care. So talk about backing into, I've undone every lovely thing I've said. Now people are like, woohoo!
When you talk about not in this world, I mean, you're not religious, are you?
I mean, I don't know. I'm the ultimate agnostic. I don't believe in a deity. Like, I'd be very disappointed if I got to heaven and I saw something that looked like you or me or somebody, a God that has like wants or needs or any of that. That'd be terrible. Plus, any physical paradise would get boring after a century or two, right? So, all that said, I totally believe in, magical force fields of love, and that we're all atomized and become a part. And so I believe in something like better than, like the Old Testament God that I was taught about, because that sounds like both unimaginative and like, boring, So I believe in like God plus or super God. but it's not human.
But yes, but you've also written at the end of the book about how you think about being reunited with Henry.
Oh yeah, I talk about like while we're alive, we're each a glass of water, and then when we die, that glass's contents get poured into a big ocean, and then we mingle, and then I'm very much with Henry, but we don't know who's who.
It's not in heaven, then it's
yeah,
not.
you're there. I hope no, and we're all I believe that absolutely.
To come back to sort of just current affairs, what's going on in the world at the moment. I mean, how do you feel about what's going on at the moment? I mean, we're sort of in this sort of political crisis in which people's lives are very affected.
Yeah,
it's not an abstract political crisis.
Sure, no. Well, I would say this. I did some work with nurses unions when Henry was in the hospital and really enjoyed that. So I started going to rallies and events and stuff and protests. And as a result, I've actually gone and spoken at some of the recent protests. And what I've been really heartened by is how they're growing in size. And that, alongside the fact that income inequality is so bad right now, and that's something that you can't wish away, no matter your political affiliation. It's kind of like gravity. So those two things happening right now, one good, one bad, are quite powerful. So the possibility of some genuine positive change happening is as good at this second as it has ever been. So I'm certainly not pessimistic. I'm not saying bad things won't or can't happen. But the possibility for very significant change is also really ripe.
I mean, you're a trade unionist. Do you ever consider politics?
No, because I already won the office of me, and that's like I could never run because then I'd have to run against somebody, and I would never do that. So I make my opinions known, but I'm more of an attraction rather than promotion guy. Like, I'm going to do my thing and my politics, whether they're popular, whether they're not. I'm going to keep doing them. I'm going to benefit from them and be happy as I do them. If that attracts other people, great. If it doesn't, none of my business.
But you want to be in favor of things rather than against things.
Yeah.
As a sort of as a direction.
Yeah.
So if you could just change the world and wave a magic wand, what would you do?
What I want to say is I would have people think about death more and talk about death more and imagine their own death more and understand that if they were born, if that happened, then they're going to die. And because you'll read that book, Henry's not the only death that has affected me in the last few years that has been a very close one. And I think, our current, some people refer to the period we're in now as late stage capitalism. And a lot of authorities right now, media, government, are interested in the quick fix, and saying, well, you don't need to worry about that. That's not going to happen. And I think that's pretty destructive. So if you accept death as a part of life, I think, and the suffering that often accompanies death, and achieve some peace with that, then you can be happier now because you have a better understanding of reality.
Has that realization changed the way you live?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very careful about time right now. I'm not trying to increase the time I have in this world. I still eat ice cream, between the hours of 10:30 and 11. And I'm not to be disturbed each night, so I'm not trying to lengthen my life, but I know that the life that I have is limited. And so I really prioritize family time. It's not just lip service. I mean, now I hold my children and I know that they're going to die. I know that they are here for a limited time. I fervently hope that I die before them, but I might not. And so I know that they are a temporary gift that I am so blessed to be able to spend time with. So my relationship with, it starts at home with my kids and my wife. is guided by an understanding that it is finite, and I did not accept that before. You could have asked me that, and I would have told you it was true, but I didn't know it in my bones. Now I do. So yeah, I'm different now.
Rob Delaney, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I hope you found that as fascinating as I did. If you did, then please do give us a rating or a review so other people can find this podcast. You can watch all of these interviews on the Channel 4 News YouTube channel. Our producer is Nina Hodgson. Until next time, bye-bye.